Hello, I am Tinu from Victoria Designs, and if you're fond of autumn nature colors, you're going to love our Autumn Flowers kit. Flowers, flowers and even more flowers, but all in an autumn color palette. And Alexandra has created a tutorial with these printables to make an amazing journal folio. This folio holds 2 small journals and also has many more pockets, etc. If you have a bit of crafting experience and you want to learn some new techniques, this is an amazing tutorial. For example, Alexandra will show you completely how to make a closure with magnetic snap buttons, and it looks very professional. I need to get me some of those, by the way. If you want to see even more of what Alexandra is up to with her amazing crafts, just head on over to her channel, the link is below. And of course, you can use our other kits to make this project as well. Maybe you're not into autumn, but you just love winter, well, take some of our winter kits. And of course, you can use these beautiful autumn colored printables to make other crafts as well. All the measurements will pop up on the screen at the right time, but if you want a handy PDF where everything is listed all neatly in a row, you can opt in via the link in the description to get that PDF. If you want more information about this beautiful kit, you can discover it in my Etsy shop. The link is below as well. And now, let me stop talking. Enjoy crafting.
Hello everyone and welcome, it's Alexandra. In today's video we are going to work on this folio using one of the newly released paper collections from Victoria Designs, and the one that I am going to introduce you to is called Autumn Flowers. That's why I have these 2 charms on the spine of the folio as well as on the tab of the journaling card that I have on the front cover. I have both of the words autumn and flowers spelled out to represent the name of the collection that I worked with, and also to sort of represent the theme, of course, of the whole project in general. The front cover, as you can see, is very plain. There are no bulky elements except for the magnetic closure itself that stands out from the surface a little bit. For an easier flip through, I will take the journaling card out of the pocket. That's how the card looks in the back, by the way. It's plain. I have added a little flower that was cut from one of the background sheets from the collection. Then on the closure, I have also added the flower from the same background paper. Here I have a die cut leaf. It was die cut out of faux leather. I have added a few rhinestones to the leaf to make it look more interesting. Here I have corners that were created with foiled tape. On the spine, I have a green canvas looking fabric, and with the same fabric I created the closure. We can now unbuckle our closure and look inside the journal. On the left hand side we have a 1/2 inch deep pocket that holds one journal. This is a 1 signature journal, rather simple to make, very straightforward embellishments on the inside. I'm going to flip through the journal, of course, together with you in a second. To the vertical pocket on this side, I have added a few die-cut slides with parts of the images from the paper collection. I have stamped some labels of my own, and I have also added a few butterflies from the paper collection to embellish the slides even further. On this side of the cover, we have a few flaps with some tags and pockets, and then inside we have another journal of a similar style like the one that I showed you before. So let's look at it together. This is the first flap. We have a few tags which are glued down to the page and they are not removable, and we also have 2 pockets, library style pockets with 2 cards inside of them. I really like this design of the library pocket, and I think it looks great together in a layout like this. I also added a tab using just two 1-inch circles from the paper collection. Now on this side of the flap, I have a composition that I built using the elements from the fussy cut sheets, and another label from my stash, and a little booklet that I have created with the leftover tea-dyed papers and the images from the collection. Very beautiful flowers, and I must say the colors in this collection are so pleasant. They make you feel cozy, they make you feel warm, and they work together really beautiful. Then on this flap we have lots of ephemera elements from the cut apart sheets, and I have also created 3 acetate pockets. On each one of the pockets we have a label, and each label says something different that together gives us cozy autumn leaves. And I have stitched the acetate pockets down to the paper. Inside the pockets I put a few cards and tickets, a few more cards with beautiful images. And then for the top pocket I needed something small, so I cut out faux postage stamps from one of the background sheets. Let's flip open this flap to the side. On this side of the flap we have another acetate pocket. Sorry about the glare. It's a vertical one. I have embellished the edge of it with the foiled tape and stitched a few more faux postage stamps to the acetate. Then, since this pocket is a vertical one, it can hold journaling cards of a larger size, and you have those in the paper collection as well. On 2 of these central flaps that will flip open towards the top and towards the bottom, I have added a few pockets from the paper collection and created just some plain journaling cards with a tab to go inside each one of those. This flap opens to the top. I just added the label to the background paper and secured the label with some brads for the added style and interest. Here there is another flap at the bottom with the same style of label, and again attached to the paper besides the glue with the help of the brads. Now here in the central part between all the flaps we have another journal which is being stored right on top of this beautiful background paper. As I have mentioned, this is a 1 signature journal. Let me flip through the pages of this journal real quick. Besides the journaling pages from the paper collection, which are printed on both sides, I have also used tea-dyed papers, and to embellish those I mostly used stencils and stamps, as well as some labels from my own stash. But I think everything worked pretty good together, and besides stenciling, stamping, and some glued down labels, there are no other embellishments in this journal because I think that the journaling pages themselves with the printed design on them look beautiful enough, and they really don't even need any extra embellishments. I also wanted to keep this journal pretty flat because the depth of the gusset on one of the flaps here that hold the journal in place is only 1/4 inch, so I had to keep that in mind when working on this specific journal. That's why it needed to be rather simple in design and embellishments. In the second journal, on the contrary, I could use more paper embellishments because the depth of the pocket that holds it is 1/2 inch, and there I could use the remaining ephemera pieces and cut apart elements from the paper collection, and I also like how it turned out. So that's the first journal. Let me put it back to where it belongs now. And we'll move to the second journal, which is right here. I will move the cover a little bit to the side so that we can have a better look at the journal itself. This is how I chose to embellish the cover. It is also quite plain, quite flat, because it needs to slide into the pocket. I have used several elements from the cut apart sheets in the paper collection, the ticket, the frame, the label, and I have only added some of the tiny die cut leaves that I had in my stash. So that's the inside of the front cover. We have here a pocket and a few more of those faux postage stamps that I have cut out and glued them down onto the page. Here we just have a postcard and another sort of a label from the paper collection. I have the printed journaling pages mixed with the tea stain papers and some other papers that I have embellished with some cut out elements from the collection, with the pieces of ephemera, as well as some of the die cuts that I thought went well with the images on the background papers. I have clipped an envelope, and here I have some of the cards that matched in terms of size, and they can be stored inside the envelope. The envelope is being clipped on the side of the page and is being held with a paper clip. Then here we have another image from the paper collection and some die cut leaves, as I have already shown you. So let me just flip through the rest of the pages and show you how I embellished them. On the inside of the back cover, I have added the corner pockets, and then with some leftover background papers, I have created 2 cards to go into these pockets, and that actually completes this journal that will go back into its pocket. I really hope that you like this paper collection and you will give this project a go. It's not very difficult, and hopefully everything is well explained in the tutorial. If you have any questions, you're always welcome to ask them in the comment section below. I will do my best to get back to you with the answers. So that's it from me for today. If you like this video, please keep on watching the tutorial, and I hope to talk to you soon. This time I'm taking you along with me on this crafty process from the very start. I will work with the new Victoria Designs collection, which is called Autumn Leaves, and I have here the papers that I have printed. I have all the journaling pages printed on both sides and folded. I have here the ephemera pages that I have printed and already cut out all the pieces. I have distressed all the edges of those elements. I usually like to keep everything which is related to a project in a plastic box. That's one part of it, and it also comes with a lid just in case I need to put the box away and get back to this or that project later. I also like to sort the cutout ephemera by either size or function. Like here, for example, I have larger pieces, the pockets or folded tags, or again folded pockets. Here are the elements that I of course will have to incorporate on the pages of my future folio book, journal. I still don't know what it will be. Here's another pocket and an envelope that I have already folded. Here I have some of the additional fussy cut out elements, some labels, and various sizes of circles that I do plan to use. Here are some faux postage stamps that I have cut out of this page, which is included in the collection. Then I have a few more of the labels, and they come in various sizes, so I have sorted them to larger and smaller ones. Some journaling cards, some more file folders that I have folded or still haven't folded, because depends on how I will want to use them in a journal, and some more smaller cards and tags here, and of course some decorative paper strips. Now I will put everything back into this box, and we will have a look at some other pages that I have also printed out. So here are the journaling pages from this kit, and the colors are so great. Love Victoria Designs papers. I have printed out a few of the background sheets, and this one I liked so much that it seems like I have printed both the one page with the smaller pattern and the vertical one with the larger images. Then I have chosen this one and some more of the less busy background pages as well. I love these designs. Like, how cool are they, really? And I also like this page with the frames and flowers in them. Really gorgeous. Now I have prepared some of the die cuts that maybe I will want to use. Of course, that's not everything. I have die cut these slides using the slide die from Tim Holtz, and I have added some images from the paper collection, but this is how it was looking like when it wasn't folded. And I have die cut some faux leather here, so that's what I used. These pieces are also cut out of the same material. And there is also one of the leaves. This is Tim Holtz die with the leaves. So I think that I might use this leaf, or maybe die cut even a few more. Depends, or maybe I will not use this one at all. that's the plan for now. I also plan this time to use more of the file folders rather than any kind of chipboard. I think I want to make something simpler than usual. So we shall see how it goes. At least for now, that's the plan. I will probably have to cut off the edges before I start using them, but I really like the color and I think it will go quite nice with the colors on some of the pages from this kit, so I plan to use them. And for the cover of whatever we're going to create, I plan to use these paper layers. They're a bit thicker than the file folders. They are, if you will look at the edge, that's how they look. These were cut from a vintage envelope looking folder that I have here. I picked those up at one of the garage sales. That's what was written on them, and they had this tab at the top, so I had to actually trim the tab piece off and also open the pocket on the sides, and then I have trimmed what will supposedly be the covers of my journal folio, or again, I still don't know what this will be, but I trimmed them to be 5 7/8 by 8 3/4. So these will be two covers that I'm going to use for the front and back. And I have also picked up some of this beautiful green canvas looking fabric in one of the craft stores, and I think it will go really nice with the green file folders. It's always hard for me to start working on a project, but once I have an idea, it just keeps on flowing in my head. So the beginning is always the hardest. I will first try, instead of just trimming, because that's the thing that I can always do, but instead of trimming this edge, I want to try and maybe open it so that I could save some of that file folder for other layers in my book. So I'm using this really thin craft knife, and yeah, I think it worked. Let's just unfold it and see how it went. I think it went pretty well, so now we can just separate this metal rod from the paper layer, and I'm also trying to do that really gently so that I don't tear any excess paper. Okay, let's take the pieces of glue, and this paper that lifted a little bit, I think I can even use my glue and glue it back in place. I will do the same on this opposite side of the file folder and get back to you. This is how it looks. I will put this file folder aside for now and work with the covers. I have prepared 2 strips of cardstock for the future spine of our book. And why there are 2? Because I want the spine to be sturdier. That's the ivory cardstock that I usually use for printing out my ephemera elements from various digital paper collections. And I cut these to 1 inch by 8 3/4. So basically it's the same height as our covers. I'm going to first glue both of the pieces together. And next I am going to glue this future spine to a piece of that green fabric that I previously showed you. The width of the fabric in this case will be about 2.5 inches. That means that once I glue the ivory cardstock piece in the center of the fabric, I will have borders of about 5/8 or 3/4 of an inch. This is how I trimmed that fabric piece. I'm going to use my Fabri-Tac glue and glue the piece of cardstock on top of the fabric. Next, I want to glue the covers on either side of the spine, like so. And of course, we need to remember that we will have to leave a gap on both sides. So the gap in my case will be about maybe 1/8 of an inch. So I will apply the glue along one of the long edges of this brown paper, and then eyeballing about 1/8 of an inch from the ivory cardstock piece, I'm going to layer this piece on top of the fabric and burnish. And I will do the same thing on the opposite side. Glue down next to the spine, right on top of the fabric, about 1/8 of an inch away from the ivory cardstock piece. I need another piece of fabric for the inside, just like that. Let's mark with a pencil up to where the glue will have to go. Roughly, not really measuring anything. Glue this fabric piece on top and make sure that I press right in the folds using my bone folder, and then glue down the sides. I think that at the top and at the bottom, I want to have equal amounts of fabric. So I'm going to take a ruler and leave. So if, for example, I need, for sure, I will need 3/4 of an inch on both edges to cover the areas without the fabric there. So I'm cutting 3/4 of an inch away from the outer edge of the covers, like that, and the same width here, 3/4. Now, when we fold these fabric pieces at the top and at the bottom, they will look nice and even, and they will be enough to cover the areas which have the exposed paper in there. That's the base with our cover. We'll keep on building our pockets and flaps from here. The Autumn Leaves collection from Victoria Designs included 24 journaling pages. That means that if you print them on both sides, you will have 12 sheets with the printed designs on them. I want to take 6 of them and use for creating a thinner journal that will go inside one of the pockets in my book. I think that I will use green file folders for the cover, and I'm also going to use some of the background page designs that I have previously showed you. And I also think that I will add some of the tea stained papers or some other papers from various notebooks that I have in my collection between the printed pages to create more interest. These empty pages can always be used for stamping, stenciling, or just adding more ephemera and pockets to the pages of your journal. The base of our mini journal is ready. I will use the green file folder for creating the cover, and I also think that it could be nice to just use it as it is. So I will probably trim the file folder like so to the length of my printed pages. 5 3/4 by 8 1/2. This is what we have, and this is how our journal will look like. For creating a pocket for our journal, I will need another piece of a file folder, and I have taken the rods from the second file folder that I had. Let's figure out the size. Here is our piece. It measures 10 3/4 by 3 3/4, with the short side of the file folder being at the top. We're going to score at 1/2 inch and 1 inch on one side only, and then we'll put the file folder piece on our scoreboard like so, with the long side being at the top. And we will score at 1/2 inch, at 1 inch, and then at 9 3/4 and 10 1/4. Next, we're going to cut. So this is one of the corners. I am cutting right here at an angle, then a straight line up to the intersection of the score lines right here in this corner, and then I will rotate the piece and again cut at an angle up to the second score line, and from the second score line up I will cut a straight line, and then I will trim a bit of the corner right here. Do the same on the opposite side, the very same way. We are going to cut off that section. Let's trim. Let's crease the folds. And this is what we're going to have: a dimensional pocket, which is 1/2 inch in depth. And this pocket will be glued down right on top of one of our covers on the inside. We need to figure out our flaps for the opposite side of the cover, and we need to take into consideration that our spine is only 1 inch wide. We have already used half of that, so whatever folds and flaps we create on the opposite side of the cover, we only have another 1/2 inch to use of that depth of the spine. I'm going to glue this pocket by the long flap to the cover. I folded the flap only, as you can see, and I will add the glue, and then I will line up the edge of the cover with the edge of the flap. I want this edge to be flush, nothing is overhanging. When we know better which designer papers we're going to use on the inside of the cover and which elements maybe we want to add to the flap itself, as well as which designer paper and elements are going to be in the front of our book, I'm going to glue the side flaps of this pocket as well. For this side of the cover, we will also create a few flaps as a start. One of the file folder pieces that you're going to need will measure 6 1/8 by 8 3/4, and you're going to score it on the short side at 5 3/8 and at 5 5/8. That will create 1/2 inch flap and 1/4 inch gusset. Like so. Then we will also need 2 additional pieces of the file folder, and I'm not really bothered by that fold on one of the edges because we're going to cover these flaps with more of the designer paper, and that paper will add stability to our file folder base. Both of the pieces measure the same, and they are 5 5/8 by 5 1/8, with the 5 1/8 of an inch side being at the top in your scoreboard. You're going to score both of these pieces only on one side at 1/2 inch and 3/4 inch. That again will create a 1/4 inch gusset and a 1/2 inch flap. Let's get back to this piece. I just want to trim the corners up to the score line on both sides at a slight angle, just like so. And I'll do the same on both of the flaps here and here. I will use my corner rounder and I will round the corners of the smaller file folder pieces. I'm rounding them on the edge, which is away from the score lines that we have previously created. Our flaps will later on be glued down like this. One will be glued down close to the spine of our book on this side. Then the shorter flaps will go at the top and at the bottom. And now we're going to create one more flap that will cover everything on this edge of our book. We'll need another piece of the file folder for creating an additional flap on the second half of our cover, and this piece will measure 6 1/2 inches by 8 3/4. On the 6 1/2 inch side, I'm going to score it at 5 1/2 and at 6, and I'm going to trim the corners of the flap at an angle like this. Let's crease our folds, and this will be the flap that will be glued down on this side of our cover, the same way as we glued the pocket down. I'm going to fold the flap only and apply glue to it. I will now line up the edges of both of the paper pieces and glue them down. Let's glue this paper piece down. Now, since we have the fabric here, it makes it a bit hard to see where exactly we need to glue. So what I'm going to do is I will use my ruler and put it right in the fold, and then make sure that I fold the back section of the cover at a straight angle, like so. And now I will try not to move this piece anywhere at all while I take the flap that will go in there. And since I'm going to glue it right on top of the fabric, I will have to use my fabric tag glue again. I'm going to apply the glue onto the flap, and now I will hold my ruler at the same place and I will glue the flap down, making sure that I line the top and bottom edges of it with the edges of the cover. And I will try to glue it down on top of the fabric, not right next to the ruler, but about 1/16 of an inch away from it, because this will allow later on for this flap to unfold easily to the left hand side. We will need to get back to our flaps that we have earlier created, and we will glue them inside between two of these flaps, making sure that we center them between the folds of the side flip out pages. And you will see that you will have probably 1/8 of an inch to the left and to the right of each one of those flaps till the score lines on the previously glued page elements. Again, we just need to make sure that we line it up with the edge right there at the top, and I will now rotate the cover and do the same on the opposite side. Okay, so from here we can keep on playing with some additional elements that we will want to add on our flip out pages and on our flaps. My plan is to create another little journal for this section of the cover and to embellish the rest of the flaps with some fun elements using the various pockets and cut out ephemera pieces from the collection. I am going now to create an identical in terms of measurements and the amount of pages journal that will be held inside this part of the book cover. This was the 4th file folder that I used for my project, but here is the base of that second small journal that will go in here. So we have one journal here and one there. I'm just trying to see in terms of thickness and stability how everything looks and feels like. Okay, we have some room for the added embellishments on the pages in the journals, so I think it should work fine. And we could also add something on the flaps here as well as on the inside. So yeah, I think we can keep on working on this. Let's think about a closure that our journal is going to have. I decided to go with the magnetic snap button, and I have both parts of it right here. This is how they look when not mounted onto anything. There are also two parts usually that look like this, and they are securing the closure from the back side just for the added stability. I couldn't find the second piece, so I'm going to use only one. Besides the snap button, I'm also going to need 2 pieces of paper, and I took here 2 types of paper just because these were the scraps. You can use the same type of cardstock. The sizes that I have here are as follows. One is going to be 1 1/8 by 6 inches long. And there is also a piece of fabric that I have here that will be enough for wrapping the paper from all the 4 sides. And the second piece of paper is going to measure 1 1/16 by 5 3/4. And I also have a piece of fabric that will be enough for wrapping it. We are going to begin with this paper piece, and this is going to be the piece that will be the front of the closure. I'm going to use the 1.5 inch radius, and I'm going to round the corners of this strip. Okay, let's try and do it again. Okay, I think that way's better. I'm also, since I have the tool right here, I'm going to round the corners using the same diameter on this paper piece as well. Okay, let's make sure that they match in terms of the outline. I think on this one I had a slight problem. Let me just fix it. I cut a very tiny piece of paper from that side, and I will round the corners again. Okay, this is better. We can keep on going. I will take the larger piece of fabric that I had, and I will use the glue for adhering the paper onto the fabric. I think I'll go with the fabric tag for this purpose. We need to slightly narrow the edges that we're going to wrap around the paper piece. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm leaving about maybe 1/4 inch all around. I'm trying to follow the outline of the paper piece here. I'm sure we will not have any trouble folding in the fabric in the places where they go at a straight line, but we need to have some more cuts in the areas where the edges curve. So I'm going to create small cuts all around this side of the paper. And the same thing goes for this part. Up to about this area, I start to make the incisions and create the tiny cuts on the fabric. Next, I'm going to use already a plain white glue. In my case, it's a art glitter glue, and I will start to use just my fingers and glue the fabric pieces to the paper, trying to repeat the outline. And the same thing here. And now we can get back to the corners on the opposite side of our future closure. Cut the corners off and then just add the glue and fold the rest of the fabric. I'm not going to glue the fabric here just yet because I first need to see how exactly we will position the band closure in the back of our cover. So let's just do the same thing on this part of the fabric band. I want to cut at a slight angle the fabric pieces which are close to the curved area. That's just for making sure that they don't overlap too much once folded. And I will once again use the glue and fold the edges. This part of the closure that will actually be visible, and it will be on top of our cover in the back. This edge might be visible, so I am going to glue it down and make sure that you fold the fabric in the very corners pretty good so they don't start to fray or unfold. Okay, it's pretty easy. If you need to, you can just add a bit more glue only there in the corners and kind of spread it with your fingers, just like that. Okay, this is what we have. Any threads that you see and you don't like how they look, you can always apply a bit of glue and try to smooth it out. Let's have a look again at the closure that we're going to use. One part is thinner than the other, so we are going to take the thinner part, and this will be the one attached to the band that we are creating here. We need to find a placement for it. I'm going to take a piece of the closure that will serve as the bottom piece, and this piece, I remind you, will be glued down on top. So I'm going now to work with the narrower piece, which is 1 1/16 of an inch wide. I need to find where exactly I want to put it down. From the edge of the strap to this line that I have here, it will be 5/8 of an inch distance. And then we need to more or less find the center of the strap as well. So I'm just roughly measuring it, and I will draw a line so that I can see where it goes. Let's get rid of the threads here because they're on the way. Okay, so we have the line that we will use as our guide, and the button will be somewhere here. There are 2 prongs that will go inside the paper, and for creating the slots for it, I'm going to use that metal piece that came with the closure. So if the center of my closure will be somewhere here at the intersection of that central line and the one that we sketched 5/8 of an inch away from the edge, I'm going to place that metal circle down so that I can see that central point through the central hole in the metal circle, and I will mark the places where I need to make 2 cuts using my craft knife. I'm using red pencil so that it's seen better on the screens where exactly the cuts will be. So here and here, you're going to cut through the paper and the fabric, and then you're going to place this part of the closure inside the strap like so. You're going to cover it with a metal piece, and now you need to use some kind of pliers or something quite strong that will help you fold the prongs flat. This is how it should look like. And now we are actually ready to glue both of the pieces together. Wait for the glue to dry, and then I will take it to my sewing machine and add the stitching from here to here. And as a matter of fact, before I do that, I think I will just cut off this piece of fabric. I'm going to stitch now and get back to you. I have finished the stitching. This is how it looks. I'm going to tie the threads now in the back and cut off the excess. We can put this piece aside for now together with this little guy here, and we can of course just secure them together so they don't get lost, because this piece will be attached to the cover, but only when we embellish the front of it, because it will go on top. And of course we need our papers and other elements that we want to see on the cover be already glued down before we keep on working on the closure. For now I will just keep both of them together like so. Now I want to move a little bit to the covers of our future book, and I have selected a few papers right here that I'm going to give you the measurements of, and we will continue to embellish the front and the back of our project, and maybe a little bit on the inside already, because as a matter of fact, I get the ideas as we go here in this tutorial, and it's a complete improvisation. That's why sometimes you might be surprised at the sequence of the things that I'm doing, but that's really how the ideas come to my head, and I hope you will just craft along with me. So back to the covers. I have a piece of paper, this green one with text on it, that I'm going to use as a background piece on the front. And I have also chosen this design. I had to trim it down to the exact size that I needed, making sure that I still have the butterfly here in the background and some of the pumpkins and sunflowers and all that. So you might also need to cut around the focal point in this image, which is this cupboard or bookcase or shelf unit, however you want to call it, to get it in the frame. So the size of the green paper is 8.5 by 5 3/4. Then here, although the image is lovely, but I thought that I wanted to have another frame behind it to accent it a little bit more, and that's why I have this piece of the file folder. It's of a different color than the file folder piece that I used for creating the cover in the first place. So this piece measures 4.5 by 7 1/8, And the piece that will go on top, the one with the image, measures 4 3/8 by 7 inches. You have probably spotted the gold foiled corners that I have on these two papers. In order to create them, I used this gold foiled tape from Hobby Lobby. It's a very inexpensive tape. I think a roll, which was way fuller than it is now, was about $3. Don't catch me on that, but I think that was the price. In order to get it at the same angle in all the 4 corners, I measured 1/2 inch to each side of the corner. So 1/2 inch to the left hand side in this case, and 1/2 inch down the bottom. And then I took my tape and just made sure that when I glue it down to the paper, that the edge of the tape goes through both of those marked places, just like so. And then I cut off the excess. What you do next here is this. First of all, you have to trim the corner, and then you just fold the sides in, making sure that you fold everything nicely. I mean the tape right here at the tip of our paper piece. And of course the pencil marks have to be erased. This is the finished look of the corners that you're going to get. Now with the second piece, the process was, as a matter of fact, the same. I just measured 1 inch to both sides of each corner, and then place the foil tape in the same way. Or another option, if you have the self-healing mat and you have the angles marked on it, you can just every time place the corner next to the line which goes at 45 degrees and do the same thing. Just every time put your tape, cut the excess, and fold the edges in. Now I am going to stitch around the edges of both of these paper pieces just to make sure that the tape stays in place over time, because I must say it's not very tacky, this tape, so just something to think about. Okay, so I'm going now first of all to glue this pattern paper onto the mat and stitch all around. Here we go, and I usually use a piece of painter's tape to secure the threads that I pull to the back and tie in a knot. And then I just add a piece of tape so that everything is held nicely together. I also decided to stitch down this faux leather die cut leaf that I had prepared for this project, and I again secured the tails of the threads in the back. Next, I will go ahead and glue this paper piece down to the cover and then take it to my sewing machine and add the stitching. Now, fingers crossed it goes well, the stitching. I just measured and understood that the cover will not fully fit into the sewing machine to do the stitching all the way around the front piece here, but I was able to fold this flap towards the top and stitch along this edge first. Here you can see that I have already cut the thread, and now I'm going to stitch along the remaining 3 edges. And it's done, stitched all around, and I have secured the threads in the back as usual. Now let's keep on working on the flap here, since we already are in the right place. I will glue the remaining piece. It's the cut off of this page design, and the piece that I have here will measure 8.5 by 2.5. I'm going to glue it down here on the inside, and then I want to use a few slides that I have prepared. I have 2 already folded, and these are also die cut from the same faux leather that I used for die cutting the leaf. I want to prepare the 3rd slide. I didn't use any acetate or vellum in the opening here. These are just images from the paper pack that we are working with. And since I have here a piece of paper that was left from cutting the image for our front cover, I think I'm going to use a certain area for completing this slide. How about this corner right here? So I think, yeah, I will go with that. This is how it's going to be. Let's put this like so on our table and glue the green paper down. Let's position our slides and just decide where exactly they will be placed, each one of them. And then I will use the tiny brads and secure each slide with the brads as well. To be on the safe side that no paper will catch on the prongs of the brads in the back, I will just add tiny pieces of tape to each one of the brads and cover the prongs with the tape that way. It's done. Here are our slides on this section of the flap and the cover. Our little journal will go into this pocket a little bit later. We have to decide on the paper that we want to use for the backing, and we also need to get back to our front cover and decide what and how we want to have the things here. Let's measure our paper piece. It is 7 1/8 in length, so that means that the center is going to be at 3.5 plus 1/16. Okay, so it's here. Let me mark it on the opposite side as well, and that's just how I like to have all the lines straight. Okay, and how far it needs to be from the edge, let's think about it. I think about 1 inch in from this edge of the paper should be fine. So let's mark that additional line here. And okay, we need to cut the holes for these prongs here. I'm just eyeballing where they need to be. Okay, and now I will use, that's how I mark them right here, and now I will use my craft knife and just cut the slots and add the closure from this side, from the front, of course. Just put it in. Okay, like so, and flatten the prongs in the back. Let's press on it from this side a little bit to make sure that it lays flat on the surface. Whew, okay, we did that. Now, I think I'm not going to glue it down all the way to the cover. I want to raise it just a little bit with the help of the medium weight chipboard strips. And I will have another pocket for a journaling card on the inside. It will go from the left-hand side here. And let's also not forget that we want to cover this section with a piece of tape, like that. Okay. Now, getting back to the chipboard strips, I think you can use the foam tape as well, maybe 1/2 inch foam tape along the sides, but I have so many of the chipboard cut-offs that I do want to use them. So the longer piece will have to be 6 7/8, and then the two shorter ones will have to be, let's measure, about 3 3/4, or in my case 3 7/8 actually could work better. So I'm going to cut another piece which is 1/2 inch wide, and then trim it to 3 7/8 using just my scissors. I think it will be easier since the strips are thin. Okay, now let's glue them down. Now we are ready to glue this whole piece down to our cover. Let's measure what should be the paper that will comfortably fit inside the area between all the medium weight chipboard. And in my case, it should be 5 7/8 by, well, I think I will have it about 4 1/2. So yeah, now we can keep on gluing down our piece. I look at the borders of the green paper, just make sure that I have it in the center. Burnish nicely so that everything gets glued down securely, paper to paper. The closure will be right here. You remember the measurements that we took for the card that will go inside our pocket in the front. Here I have a piece that measures exactly that, 5 7/8 by 4 1/2, and it slides inside nicely, but I think that I will trim it to 4 inches wide when I'm ready to do that, because I want only the tab to be showing, that tab that I'm going to add to my card for the matting piece, I'm going to use just a piece of tea stain paper, but you're welcome to use a piece of pattern paper from the collection as well. We will get back now to our inside decoration of the cover, and I think that for this side of the cover, the only thing which is left is to cut a piece of the pattern paper. I'm going to give you the measurements in a second, and then to glue down the flaps on the pocket, so that with this section we are done completely. I'm going to go with this pattern from the collection. It will measure 8.5 by 5 3/4. I'm going to add the double-sided tape onto the flaps. I'm gluing it down close to the fold line, and the same thing goes for the flap at the top. I will remove the backing from the tape and rotate the cover, and then make sure that I line the edge of the flap when it's folded with the edge of the cover. And I will also make sure that right here I have a straight angle, okay, like so. And now when everything is looking nice and everything is flush here at the edge, I will put the cover down and use something to burnish on the inside, just like that. And let's do the same with the second flap, absolutely the same way. Okay, it's positioned in the right place, and now we can burnish. This is how it should look like. Okay, and the bottom. Our flap and pocket are done. That's how the front cover looks like. I think I want to add a piece of pattern paper for the back of the whole cover. That's the pattern that I chose, and I distressed the edges of it with the distress ink. The paper piece itself measures 8.5 by 5 3/4. So I'm just going to glue it down onto the cover, and I will not do anything else for now. Look at the borders on all the four sides. They should be even. Next, we will work on covering with pattern paper the surfaces of the flaps on the right hand side of our cover. And I will start with the flaps at the bottom and at the top. These two sections will be covered by the pattern paper that looks like this, the one with the green background and red mushrooms on it. I have also added the labels from the paper pack to each one of the flaps, and for a decorative touch I added the brads in here at the top and at the bottom. The paper pieces measure both 5.5 by 4 1/4, and of course you will have to mind the direction of the paper when you round the corners of each one of the paper pieces, because one of them will go right here and the second one will be glued down there at the top. For the outside part of both of the same flaps, I want to use some of the pockets from the collection, and this is how both of them look like. I will also use the background paper that looks like this. And I have already prepared my pieces. Each one of them measures 5.5 by 4.25. The measurement is basically the same as the one for the inside. And I'm going to glue the pockets down to each one of the paper pieces first, and then I will glue each one of them to the surface of the flap. Please pay attention again where exactly you round the corners and how you glue the pockets down to the background papers. Now we are ready to get to the part of this flap right here. I want to have here another paper with the green background and the text and the mushrooms, and I also think that I'm going to create here just a decorative composition with some of the elements from the fussy cut sheets. I have the pumpkins, and from the pumpkins I had to trim the top section that had the flowers because I only want the pumpkins to be here. And then I also took the element with the typewriter, and to make it more interesting I typed Hello Autumn on a little paper piece that I have added inside the typewriter after creating a slit there and sliding the paper into it. And then I will also have here a butterfly on the side. So that's how I want those elements to look like. The paper measures 5.25 by 8.5. I have all the decorative elements glued down. Now for the top section of the paper, I think I want to have a sort of a pocket, and I will tell you for what. I have created 2 little notebooks with some of the scraps of the tea stain paper that I had, and the covers are taken from one of the sheets from the paper collection, the one that had various frames with these flowers. So I have created one horizontal cover and notebook and one vertical. For the vertical one, in order to have the flower facing the right direction, because it was positioned the same way as the hibiscus right here, I have just cut out the flower only from the frame and then added a piece of tea stain paper in the back to the whole frame, and then I just glued down the middle section with the flower the way I needed it to be. This vertical notebook will be positioned on the left hand side. For creating the slot, first of all, I added some guidelines to the back of my paper piece. The vertical guideline is 1/2 inch away from the right hand side of the paper, and then the horizontal one is 3/4 inch away from the top. I will start cutting a slot for my notebook along the line which goes along the top, and I need to know how long that line for the slot needs to be. So if my notebook measures about 2 5/8 of an inch, I think my slot will be 2 3/4 of an inch long. So I'm going first of all to measure 2 3/4. Okay, I can already cut the slot using my craft knife. And then I will move my ruler a little bit lower, maybe 1/16 of an inch lower or 2 millimeters lower, and I will create another cut line. And now I will take that piece of paper out so that we can have a slot that looks like this. I also want to reinforce the slot here, and for that I will take another piece of paper. That's the paper that I have right here, and this paper measures, let me tell you, 3 1/4 by 5/8 of an inch. I want to use this piece for reinforcing the slot. So first of all, I will have to create some guidelines in the back, and each one of the 4 guidelines will be 1/4 of an inch away from the 4 edges of the paper piece. That leaves us with the area here in the middle that we're going to cut out. And I want to round the corners of the paper piece before I glue it down and before I cut the actual slot in it. So I will round the corners, and now I will use my ruler and a craft knife for cutting out that section of paper in the center. Before we glue this piece down, let's measure that it fits on top, and it does. I'm going to glue it down on top of the slot that I have cut out in my background paper. And I will also use my crocodile and punch a hole right here just to make the opening look more interesting. Okay, this is how it will look like, and then the little notebook will slide into that opening. Flip the paper to the back. Now I will just mark the area where I don't want to add any glue. Okay, to this area we are not going to apply any glue, but to the rest of the page we are gonna add our adhesive and glue the page down onto this flap. We will now work on the next section of the flap. I have prepared the papers that I want to use. This is the background pattern paper. It measures 8 1/2 by 5 1/4. And I'm also going to use 2 of the library pockets on this page and 2 of the tags that I have cut out from the paper collection, and I have added the gold foiled paper reinforcers to the tops of each one of the tags, and I have strung thin string through them. Now I want to show you how to assemble this absolutely cute library pocket. You are going to cut out the shape along the guidelines that you will definitely see on your printables. Then there is this piece and this piece that we're going to use for assembling our pocket. First of all, you can see that I have distressed this area of the paper, and I'm going now to fold the flaps and glue the flaps down to create the actual pocket. Next, we're going to take the little paper piece and glue it down at the top. There will be a little border around the paper that you're gluing down. This is how it is going to look like. And then the card will go inside the pocket like so. I'm going to glue each one of the pockets to the paper piece like so. And the tags will be added here and here. To secure the threads, I think I will use my tiny attacher. I also want to add 2 of these circles that will serve as another decorative touch at the top of this page. And since I have 2 of them that look more or less the same, I want to use one on the front, and then the other one will be glued down on the reverse side of the flap. This circle is 1 inch in diameter, and I'm going to glue it down onto my page now. Make sure that it doesn't go further than the fold of the flap on the left-hand side. We don't need any obstacles that will prevent us from folding everything nicely together. Okay, just make sure that your flaps can close nicely. I still don't have an idea for this side of the flap, but I do have one for this side. And here I want to use the pattern paper that looks like this. I printed down to 5 1/8 by 8 1/2. I also want to have on this side of the page a few acetate pockets. To each one of the acetate pockets, I have added a label and a word. I have secured the labels on the acetate with the glue first, and then I added the breads, and then I covered the prongs of the breads with the clear tape so that you cannot see it from the front of the pocket. The acetate base of the pockets measures 5 1/8, which basically is the width of our paper, 5 1/8, and then the width of each one of the pockets is 2 inches. They are identical. I'm going to stitch them down to my paper piece, and for doing that I need to find a placement for each one of the pockets first. I created guidelines in the back of my paper, and I'm sorry I planned this paper to be double-sided at first, but then I had second thoughts. I have created 2 lines. The first one will go closer to the top edge of the paper, and then one will be a little bit to the top from the middle. So the first line will be 7/8 of an inch away from the top, and then the second line will be 3 3/4 of an inch away from the top edge of the paper. And that way, when you take your first pocket, that will be the top pocket, you are going to line its top edge, and I know it's hard to see, but this is the acetate pocket that I'm holding here. I will make sure that I line the top corners of this pocket with the guideline that I have created. I'm going to clip my acetate pocket down to the background paper, and now I'm going to take it to my sewing machine and add the stitching along the bottom of the pocket. Let me do that and show you how it looks. Of course, while you stitch, you will keep the clips on your paper because they will make sure that the acetate doesn't move. If you find it hard working with the acetate, you can replace the acetate with maybe tracing paper or vellum. I'm pulling the tails of the threads to the back of the paper piece and tying some double knots or even triple knots. Then, of course, as previously, I'm going to use little pieces of painter's tape and secure the tails additionally in the back of the paper. Next, I will take my second pocket and I will do the same thing. I will line the top corners of the acetate with the guideline that I have created, and I will secure the pocket with the paper clips onto my background paper and take it to my sewing machine and stitch along the bottom of this pocket the same way as we did with the top one. Pull the threads to the back and secure the tails with 2 pieces of tape. So that's what we have right now. Next, we're going to take the third pocket and find the perfect placement for it right along the bottom edge of the background paper piece. Secure it with the clips and now stitch along the 4 edges of the paper. We are ready to glue the whole paper piece down to the top flap of our book. Let's have a look at some of the cards that we have in the paper collection. Maybe we could add a few of them to our pockets already. I think this one, or maybe this one is too big, so 2 of these ones, and then 2 of these, and maybe some of the stamps. I have cut out some of the stamps. Oh, we have some tickets. Let's see. Okay, 1 ticket will go here, 1 more here, and we can add something really small into the top pocket. I think these could be some of the faux postage stamps that I have cut out from one of the pages. I think they will look nice here. Okay, this flap with the pockets is full of various ephemera. Next, let's work on the part of the flap which is on the reverse from the pockets. And for this section here, I'm going to need a piece of paper. That's the pattern that I chose. It measures 5 1/8 by 8 1/2. I'm going to create a vertical acetate pocket on this side of the flap. The acetate piece that I have measures 2 1/2 inches by 8 1/2. Along one edge of the acetate, I want to add the gold foiled tape that I previously showed you in the video. So I'm going to apply it along the edge. And then fold the other half. I'm trying to make sure that one part of the tape is wider than the other, so that the nicer looking side is at the top. And this is how it's going to be attached to the paper background. Don't forget to use your clips and secure the acetate while you're stitching. We are going to stitch around the 4 edges of the paper, but before we do that, let's think if we want to add anything to the acetate pocket and maybe secure those elements with the brads. because once it's stitched down to the page, it will of course be very hard to add anything to the acetate. I want to add a few elements to my acetate pocket first, so I'm going to use these faux postage stamps, and I will glue them down to the acetate first, and then we'll take the whole piece to my sewing machine and stitch the faux postage stamps onto the acetate. I will also add the zigzag stitching along the edge with the foiled tape and get back to show you the result. You can secure the tails of the threads in the back of the piece behind the stitched down elements with a piece of tape. This is how my pocket looks like. Now I'm ready to clip it onto the paper piece and take the whole panel to my sewing machine and stitch around the 4 edges, and then glue the whole piece down to the flap in my book. This is how this flap will look like, and we once again can add some larger journaling cards into this pocket here. This flap will be folded first because the gusset that we have here is only 1/4 of an inch wide, and then this piece will go on top. Between the flaps that we have embellished with pattern paper, one of the 2 journals will be stored. I have embellished this journal offline. All I did was create the front cover, the back cover, stapled all the pages with the help of just 2 staples. That's all I did, and this is how the cover looks like from the front and from the back. And I have also added some stamping and stenciling on the pages of the journal that didn't have any printed pattern on them. I tried to find the stamps in my collection that were related somehow to autumn theme, so mostly these are various kinds of leaves. Turns out I have quite a lot of those. The vast majority of stamps here is from Tim Holtz and Stampers Anonymous. So that's the first journal. Now the second journal that will go into this pocket right here will be of the same thickness as the one which hides on this side of the cover between the flaps. For the front cover, I want to have another pattern paper piece, and it measures 5.5 by 8.25. That's the pattern that I chose, and I have also layered a few cut-offs of that cream paper that I previously used in the journal, and I have also added some of the elements from the fussy cut sheets. And here I want to mention a few things. Most of the fussy cut elements in the paper collection that we are working with today, the autumn flowers, are quite large, so I felt that I needed them to be smaller. So I printed the pages which included the fussy cut elements, making sure that I scale them down to 50% of their original size. But not all of the elements on this page are printed at 50% of the size. The ticket here, for example, is of its original size, as well as this label and the frame here in the very center of the page. Then the leaves that I have used are just die-cut leaves from my stash. The pumpkins and the desk and the flowers, as well as the butterflies, all are 50% of their original size. To glue this down onto my cover, I have used the score tape next to the edges that had the stitching, and now I will use the liquid glue on the remaining area of the page. Now when the cover is ready, I can take my pages. There is only one signature in this journal. That's why I thought that binding it with just simple staples will work fine. If you want to, you can sew your signature the way you are regular to do that. I'm going with those staples that I have prepared. I will use my poking tool and find the places for poking the holes so that they match the size of the staple. And as you can see, I'm poking from the inside towards the outside, but of course the staple will go the regular way from the outside to the inside. And we only need now to fold the prongs and to secure the staple on our pages. And I will repeat the process for the second staple. Once all of the contents that we want to have inside the cover of our book is placed into it, we will get back to our band for the closure, and I want you to curve it with your fingers and give it this shape, and that's because we want to clip it down to the magnet on the front cover and then wrap it around our book like so, and hold it with my fingers and mark with a pencil where it needs to be attached to the back cover. Very lightly use your pencil and mark that area. I will apply the glue first, about 1.5 inches in from this edge, and now I will glue it down where I marked before and hold it for a few seconds, and then I will add the brads. We can now get back to the paper piece that we have prepared for covering the inside area between all the flaps on the cover, and we can go ahead and glue this piece down. I also want to remind you the measurement for this paper piece. It's 5 3/4 by 8.5. This journal goes back into its place and all the flaps are folded back. I felt like this area here was a little bit empty. I think I'm going to add another flower in here. I will also add one of the labels that I have stamped. What's left now is to work on embellishing the pages inside the journal. I am going to use as many as I can of the pockets and envelopes and other pockets that the paper collection included, and you will see the overview of the result in the flip through of the journal. Now I'd like to finish off the card that we have prepared for the pocket on the front page of our journal, and we have the base of it with the tea stained paper that I already glued down to one side of the file folder piece. The base of this card was 5 7/8 by 4.5. I want to trim it down and make it 4 inches, instead of 4.5. And then on this side of the card, I want to have this piece of pattern paper. That's the one that I chose, and it measures 5 3/4 by 3 7/8. Before I put the card inside the pocket, I need to add a tab for it on the left-hand side of the card, because without the tab it will be really challenging to take the card out of the pocket. You can use any shape of the tab punch or die that you have. I will use this punch, and I am going to attach the tab now to the card. I'm going to add an eyelet here at the bottom corner and add a little embellishment that I have prepared. And these are just some letter beads from Walmart. My girls like to use them in the bracelets that they are creating, and the beads come in a white color, but I used alcohol inks and colored them into the colors that matched the tones of the paper collection. So the one that says flowers will go on to the tab. The second charm will actually be added to the cover, and for doing that I'm just going to poke a hole close to the top somewhere here. I will mark the placement for it and then add an eyelet. Now I have the name of the paper collection that I worked with for creating this journal spelled out both on the cover and on the tab here. Now that I'm thinking, maybe it would be better to put an eyelet and add the charm actually at the top corner of the tab, and I don't think we can't do it still. Decisions are made here and now. I think this way it looks better. So here we can just have a plain eyelet or add another charm, maybe with a bulb pin, something really small. I also want to add a little flower to the band here at the top. I have a few very, very tiny elements that I have cut out from the pattern paper. Let me show you which one was that. From this pattern paper, I have cut out the flowers and the mushrooms and some of the leaves. So one of the little flowers I think will look really nice on top of the closure. I'm going to glue it down. We can also add more of those tiny cut out leaves and flowers to the cover of our book on the inside. I think it will also look really nice. We can do something like that, probably something smaller. Yeah, I think I will glue all of these down on the inside of the cover. And probably on the outside of the cover we could do the same. I think that pretty much completes that tutorial for today. I hope you like it. I hope you enjoyed it. And I really recommend that you check out this collection from Victoria Designs. All the links will be in the description box down below. Talk to you soon. Bye.